The parking lot asphalt was still warm under my feet as I walked toward my truck, every muscle in my body screaming from another week of sleeping 3 hours a night. That's when I heard it, footsteps pounding behind me, getting closer. Thomas. Thomas, wait. Richard Blaine's voice cracked like he'd swallowed glass. I didn't turn around. My hand was already on the truck door handle. My resignation email sent exactly 4 minutes ago. The same email that was currently sitting in the inboxes of our CEO, the entire executive board, and half the senior leadership team. The same email with an attachment showing our fourth quarter revenue numbers, $394 million, right next to a photograph of an $8 coffee shop voucher. I am 55 years old. My name's Thomas Vance, and until about 5 minutes ago, I was the Senior Portfolio Director at Clearwater Financial Solutions. That title sounds impressive, right? It should. I'd earned it through 6 years of dragging this company from mediocre performance to record-breaking quarters. I'd built systems, managed teams across 4 time zones, and personally closed deals that made our competitors physically ill. But here's what that title really meant. I was the person they called at 2 o'clock in the morning when a deal was falling apart. I was the one who missed my anniversary dinner because a client in Singapore needed hand-holding. I was the one who hadn't taken a real vacation in 3 years because nobody else understands Richard's footsteps were getting closer. I could hear him gasping for air. He wasn't exactly the athletic type. Probably the most exercise he'd gotten all year was walking from his corner office to the executive dining room. I threw my bag into the passenger seat and finally turned around. He was bent over, hands on his knees, his face the color of a ripe tomato. His tie was crooked, and there was a coffee stain on his shirt that I was pretty sure had been there since our morning meeting. The morning meeting where he'd handed me that voucher. You can't just, he wheezed. You can't just leave like this. I crossed my arms and leaned against my truck. The metal was hot through my blazer, but I didn't care. I'd been burning up from the inside for months now anyway. What was a little external heat? Actually, Richard, I can. It's called at-will employment. Works both ways, remember? You love reminding people of that during layoff season. His face went from tomato red to something closer to purple. You sent that email to everyone. Do you have any idea what you've done? I did know. That's exactly why I'd done it. But let me back up and tell you how I got here. Standing in a parking lot watching my former director have what appeared to be a minor cardiac event. 3 months ago, our CEO, Julian Thorne, announced the most ambitious expansion in company history. Clearwater was going to acquire 2 smaller firms, launch a new tech platform, and break into 3 new markets simultaneously. It was aggressive, maybe even reckless, but the potential payoff was enormous. Julian stood in front of the entire company during an all-hands meeting and said this is going to require sacrifice from all of us. But when we pull this off, everyone who contributed will be rewarded beyond their expectations. Everyone nodded. Everyone applauded. Everyone went back to their desk and prepared for the Except the storm that hit my department wasn't just bad weather. It was a Category 5 hurricane that lasted 12 weeks straight. My team of 8 people was suddenly managing the work that should have required 20. 2 people quit in the first month. Richard didn't let me backfill their positions. We need to stay lean during the transition, he said. It's temporary. Temporary? That word should be banned from corporate vocabulary. I started working longer hours. 70-hour weeks became 80-hour weeks. 80 became 90. My wife Sarah would leave for work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'd already be on my second conference call. She'd come home at 6 o'clock, and I'd still be typing away, building financial models, reviewing contracts, managing crisis after crisis. She'd go to bed at 11 o'clock, and I'd still be awake. The blue light from my laptop, the only illumination in our home office. Thomas, this isn't sustainable, she told me one night around week 7. She was standing in the doorway in her pajamas, holding a cup of chamomile tea she'd made for me. It had probably gone cold an hour ago while I finished a presentation for the Japanese market entry. I know, I said, not looking up from my screen. Just a few more weeks. Once the acquisition closes. You said that 3 weeks ago. He was right. I had said that, but what was I supposed to do? My team was drowning. The clients were demanding. Richard was breathing down my neck for updates every 6 hours. Someone had to hold it all together. Sarah set the tea down on my desk, carefully moving a stack of file folders so he wouldn't spill on them. That small gesture of care made my throat tight. When was the last time I'd actually had a conversation with my wife that wasn't me mumbling responses while staring at spreadsheets? "Baby, I'm worried about you," he said quietly. "You're running on fumes. Yesterday you fell asleep standing up while brushing your teeth." I'd laughed it off then, but he wasn't wrong. I was falling apart in slow motion. My skin had broken out like I was a teenager again. I'd started getting tension headaches that felt like someone was driving a railroad spike through my left eye. I'd lost weight because I kept forgetting to eat meals, just grabbing whatever was easiest. Usually coffee and whatever granola bars we had lying around. But the worst part, I'd started to feel like this was normal, like this was just what success required. Richard certainly seemed to think so. Every time I flagged that we were understaffed, he'd give me the same response. "High performers don't make excuses, Thomas. They find solutions." So I found solutions. I automated parts of my workflow. I trained my remaining team members to handle more complex tasks. I personally took on the work of 3 people, and somehow, impossibly, we didn't just survive, we crushed it. The acquisition closed ahead of schedule. The tech platform launched with minimal issues. We secured major clients in all 3 new markets within the first month. Our fourth quarter numbers didn't just meet projections, we exceeded them by 47%. $394 million in revenue, the highest quarter in company history. I knew these numbers intimately because I'd built the models that made them possible. I'd been on the calls that closed the deals. I'd worked 96 hours in a single week during the final push to get the tech platform launched on time. 96 hours. That's not a typo. I tracked it because part of me didn't believe it was possible until I saw it written down. Monday, 18 hours, Tuesday 21 hours, Wednesday 19 hours, Thursday 22 hours, Friday 16 hours. And that was only because I physically passed out at my desk around midnight and Sarah came into the office and dragged me to bed. When I woke up Saturday morning, every part of my body hurt. Not sore like after a workout, hurt like I'd been in a car accident. My hands were cramping from typing. My neck was frozen from hunching over my laptop. My eyes were so dry and irritated I could barely open them. Sarah brought me breakfast in bed, scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. He sat on the edge of the bed and watched me eat with this expression I couldn't quite read. "What?" I asked, my mouth full of eggs. "I'm just trying to figure out if this is worth it," he said. "Whatever they're going to give you as a bonus for these last few months, is it worth what this is doing to you?" I didn't have an answer, but I thought about Julian's promise. Everyone who contributed will be rewarded beyond their expectations. My expectations were pretty high. I'd personally generated somewhere around 80 million of that 394 million in revenue. Conservative estimate. My work had probably earned the company somewhere in the range of pure profit that would make a normal person's head spin. A week later, Julian sent out another company-wide email. The subject line read, "Record quarter celebration and gratitude." My heart picked up speed as I opened it. This was it. This was where they'd announced the bonuses, the promotions, the rewards for everyone who'd sacrificed so much. The email was 3 paragraphs of corporate congratulations. Lots of words like synergy and stakeholder value and operational excellence. And then, at the bottom, department heads will be recognizing team members individually for their contributions. "Thank you for your continued dedication." That was it. No mention of bonuses, no announcement of promotions, just a vague statement about department heads doing recognition. I sat back in my chair and stared at the email. Around me, I could hear my team members reacting. Someone laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Someone else muttered something I couldn't quite hear, but could definitely understand the sentiment. "Well," said Kevin, one of my senior analysts, "I guess we're getting bagels in the break room or something." He wasn't far off. 2 days later, Richard sent out a meeting invitation. Fourth quarter performance recognition portfolio team. It was scheduled for 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, always a great sign. Nothing important ever happens at 4 o'clock on a Friday. The meeting was in one of the small conference rooms, the kind with no windows and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look vaguely ill. My team filed in, and you could feel the exhaustion coming off everyone in waves. Kevin had dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises. Rachel, my lead account manager, had started bringing her laptop to the bathroom because she was on calls, so constantly she couldn't afford normal breaks. Brian had missed his daughter's school play. Chloe had postponed her wedding by 6 months because there was no way she could take time off for a honeymoon. These people had given everything. We all had. Richard walked in carrying a small shopping bag, the kind you get from chain coffee shops. He was smiling, which should have been my first warning sign. Richard only smiled when he was about to deliver news he knew was bad, but was going to pretend was good. "Team," he said, setting the bag down on the conference table. "I wanted to personally thank each of you for your extraordinary efforts this quarter. What we accomplished together is nothing short of remarkable." We'd heard this before, the corporate gratitude speech. I glanced at Kevin, who was methodically clicking a pen, his face carefully neutral. "The executive team is thrilled with our performance," Richard continued. "And while we can't do major compensation adjustments outside of the normal review cycle," there it was, the catch. There's always a catch. "I wanted to do something to show my appreciation for each of you." He reached into the shopping bag and started pulling out small envelopes. He walked around the table handing one to each person. When he got to me, he pressed the envelope into my hand and actually patted me on the shoulder. "Especially you, Thomas. Your leadership during this period was exceptional." I opened the envelope. Inside was a gift card to the coffee shop 3 blocks from our office. I turned it over. $8. I looked up and saw my team members opening their envelopes. Same thing. Everyone got an $8 coffee shop voucher. "I know it's small," Richard said, and at least he had the decency to sound slightly embarrassed. "But I wanted you all to be able to treat yourselves. Appreciate the little things, right?" The silence in that room was deafening. Rachel was staring at her voucher like it might spontaneously combust. Brian's jaw was clenched so tight I thought he might crack a tooth. Chloe looked like she was going to cry, and something inside me just snapped. Not visibly. I didn't throw the voucher at Richard's head, though the thought crossed my mind. I didn't scream or storm out. I smiled. A real, genuine smile that probably looked slightly unhinged if I'm being honest. "You're absolutely right, Richard," I said. "We should appreciate the little things." He looked relieved. "Exactly. It's the thought that counts. The thought. The thought that our 96-hour weeks, our missed family time, our physical and mental health, our record-breaking performance that earned the company nearly $400 million. All of that was worth $8. The meeting ended. Everyone shuffled out clutching their vouchers like they were evidence at a crime scene, which, in a way, they were. I went back to my desk and sat down. My hands were shaking, but not from exhaustion this time. From rage, pure, crystallized rage that I'd been too tired to properly feel for the past 3 months. This wasn't just about the money, though that was insulting enough. It was about what that voucher represented. It was about being told my value to this company could be measured in the cost of 2 lattes. It was about working myself into the ground and being patted on the head like a good dog who'd learned a new trick. I'd given them everything, and they'd given me $8. I thought about Julian's promise again, rewarded beyond their expectations. Well, he was technically right. I certainly hadn't expected $8. I'd expected literally anything else. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. "Coming home for dinner tonight? Made your favorite." When was the last time I'd been home for dinner? When was the last time I'd seen my wife for more than a few groggy minutes in the morning? I looked at the voucher, sitting on my desk. Then I looked at my laptop screen, at the financial dashboard that showed our fourth quarter numbers in real time. $394 million. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I opened my email and started a new message. The 2-line got Richard's email address, but the CC line, that's where it got interesting. Julian Thorne, CEO, Melissa Grant, CFO, the entire executive committee, the board liaison, HR director, every single person who'd been forwarding around congratulatory emails about our record quarter. Subject line, resignation effective immediately. My fingers flew across the keyboard. No corporate speak, no polite fictions, just the truth, clean and sharp. Dear Richard, I'm writing to inform you of my resignation from Clearwater Financial Solutions, effective immediately. I'm attaching 2 items to this email. The first is our fourth quarter revenue report, which shows record-breaking performance of $394 million. The second is a photograph of the $8 coffee shop voucher I received today as recognition for my contribution to these numbers. During the last quarter, I worked an average of 87 hours per week. In the final week of the tech platform launch, I worked 96 hours. I managed a team that was understaffed by 60% while taking on the responsibilities of 3 senior-level positions. I personally closed deals representing approximately $80 million in revenue. I did this while being told repeatedly that high performers don't make excuses. You're right about one thing, Richard. We should appreciate the little things. So, I'm appreciating the little time I have left with my health, my marriage, and my self-respect by choosing to no longer spend it at this company. I appreciate the little reminder that no matter how much value I create, I will be valued at approximately $8. I appreciate the little insight into what leadership actually thinks about the people who make their bonuses possible. And I especially appreciate this little opportunity to share that insight with everyone CC'd on this email. My laptop, badge, and corporate credit card will be on my desk. Feel free to use my remaining PTO to pay out my final check, though I'm sure an $8 voucher would be easier for accounting. Best regards and appreciation for all the little things. Thomas Vance. I attached the revenue report. Then I picked up the voucher, took a of it with my phone, and attached that too. The contrast was beautiful in its obscenity. Hundreds of millions in one file, $8 in the other. My cursor hovered over the send button for maybe half a second, then I clicked it. The swoosh sound of the email sending was the most satisfying noise I'd ever heard. I stood up from my desk. Around me, the office was still buzzing with end-of-day activity. People on calls, typing away, living their normal corporate Friday afternoon. None of them knew that several executive email inboxes had just received a grenade. I gathered my personal items. Not much, really. A photo of Sarah and me from our honeymoon in Colorado, a coffee mug my team had given me for my birthday, a small succulent plant that had somehow survived my neglect. Everything fit in my shoulder bag easily. 6 years at this company, and my entire presence could be erased in 90 seconds. I left my laptop on the desk, screen still open to that financial dashboard. My badge went next to it, corporate credit card on top, a little shrine to everything I was leaving behind. Kevin looked up as I walked past his desk, heading out. Yeah, I said, for good actually, I just quit. His eyes went wide. Wait, what? I sent my resignation about 3 minutes ago. You'll probably want to update your resume. Things are about to get weird around here. I didn't wait for his response. I just headed for the elevator, my bag over my shoulder, feeling lighter with every step. The elevator ride down from the 14th floor felt like shedding layers of old skin. By the time I reached the lobby, I was almost giddy. The late afternoon sun hit me as I walked out of the building, and the warmth felt different than it had that morning. That morning, I dragged myself in here, already exhausted, dreading another day. Now I was walking out unemployed and uncertain, and I felt more alive than I had in months. The parking lot stretched out in front of me. My truck was in the far corner where I always parked, because I got here early enough to have my pick of spots. Not anymore. Someone else could have that spot now. I was halfway across the parking lot when I heard the building doors slam open behind me. Thomas, Richard's voice. I didn't turn around. I kept walking. Thomas, wait. The footsteps started, fast, getting closer. I could hear him breathing hard. He was running. I almost laughed. Richard running. That was worth turning around to see. So I did. I got to my truck, threw my bag inside, and turned to face him. He was a mess. Face red, tie askew. That coffee stain even more prominent now that he was sweating through his shirt. He skidded to a stop about 6 feet from me, gasping for air. You can't just leave like this. I crossed my arms. Actually, Richard, I can. It's called at-will employment. Works both ways, remember? You sent that email to everyone. He wasn't asking. His phone was in his hand, screen lit up. I could see the email notification from here. I did. Do you have any idea what you've done? Made sure everyone knows exactly how this company treats its top performers. His face somehow got redder. You've embarrassed me. You've embarrassed the entire leadership team. Julian's already called me twice. Melissa wants a meeting first thing Monday morning. Sounds like a rough weekend for you. This is completely unprofessional. And that's when I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all just hit me at once. Unprofessional? I said. Richard, you gave me an $8 voucher after I worked 96 hours in 1 week. You told me to appreciate the little things while the executives are probably planning their bonus trips to Aspen right now. You want to talk about unprofessional? The voucher was a gesture, he sputtered. I have budget constraints. You know how these things work. Bonuses get decided at the executive level, not by department heads. So, you thought $8 was better than nothing? You thought that was a good idea? I thought. He stopped, seeming to realize he didn't have a good answer. Look, Thomas, you're upset. I get it. Take the weekend. On Monday, we can talk about this. I'm sure we can work something out. Work what out? You're going to suddenly triple my salary? Give me the team resources I've been begging to receive. Acknowledge that you've been running us into the ground. We can discuss. No, I said firmly. We can't because I'm done discussing. I'm done explaining. I'm done managing up while being treated like I'm worth $8. I'm just done, Richard. He changed tactics, his voice dropping to something that was probably supposed to sound concerned. Think about your career, Thomas. If you walk away like this, if you leave that email out there for everyone to see, you'll get a reputation. People talk. This industry is smaller than you think. There it was, the veiled threat, the suggestion that speaking the truth about how I'd been treated would somehow be worse for me than for the company that had exploited me. You know what, I said. I hope people talk. I hope every talented person thinking about working here hears exactly what happened. I hope your next hire asks you about it in the interview. I hope Julian has to explain to the board why his record quarter came with a mass exodus of the people who made it possible. Mass exodus? Richard's eyes widened. Who else is leaving? I shrugged. No idea, but if I were you, I'd check my inbox Monday morning. I'm guessing at least a few people on my team are updating their resumes this weekend. That wasn't entirely speculation. I'd seen the look on Kevin's face, on Rachel's, on all of them. That voucher hadn't just insulted me, it had insulted everyone, and my email had just shown them that speaking up was possible. Richard pulled out his phone. I'm calling Julian. We can fix this. We can make you a counteroffer. Save your breath. There's no counteroffer that makes up for 3 months of being ground into dust. There's no amount of money that gives me back the time I lost with my wife, or the sleep I didn't get, or the health issues I'm probably going to be dealing with for months. Everyone works hard here, Thomas. That's the culture. That's what it takes to succeed. No, I said. That's what it takes to burn out. There's a difference between working hard and being exploited. I'm just sorry it took me this long to see it. I turned to get in my truck. Richard grabbed my arm. Wait, just wait, please. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. He let go. What do you want, Richard? I want you to understand that I fought for you, he said, and for the first time he sounded genuine. I went to Julian. I told him you deserved a promotion, a major bonus. But the executive team decided all the extra profits from fourth quarter needed to be reinvested in the expansion. They said compensation adjustments would come in the next fiscal year. So, you knew the bonuses weren't coming, and you gave us $8 vouchers instead of just being honest about it. I was trying to do something positive. I was trying to show appreciation with what I had available. You had honesty available, Richard. You could have told us the truth. You could have said, look, I know you all killed yourselves this quarter, and the executives are choosing to reinvest the profits instead of rewarding you. I think that's wrong, but it's out of my hands. That would have been something. That would have been respect. He deflated, his shoulders sagging. You're right, I should have been honest. I didn't want everyone to get demoralized. Well, mission accomplished on that front anyway. We stood there in the parking lot, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. Richard looked smaller somehow, less like the intimidating director, and more like what he actually was, a middle manager stuck between impossible expectations from above and exhausted employees below. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. For what it's worth, he said quietly, you were the best director I ever managed. This department won't be the same without you. You're right, I said. It'll probably collapse within a month. I didn't say it to be cruel. It was just true. I'd been the load-bearing wall holding everything up. Without me, the structural problems I'd been masking through sheer force of will were going to become real obvious, real fast. I got in my truck. Richard stood there watching me. I started the engine and the air conditioning hit me like a blessing. How long had it been since I'd left work while it was still light out? I rolled down the window. One more thing, Richard. He looked up hopefully, like maybe I was about to say this was all a big mistake. That $8 voucher, I'm going to frame it. Put it up in my home office as a reminder to never again mistake my value for what someone else decides to pay me. I drove away and didn't look back. The drive home was only 20 minutes, but it felt like crossing into a different world. I called Sarah from the car. Hey, baby, she answered. You coming home for dinner? Yeah, I said, and my voice cracked a little. I'm coming home, and I just quit my job. Silence then. Okay, we'll talk when you get here. Drive safe. No panic, no anger, just acceptance. That's Sarah. That's why I married him. When I pulled into our driveway, he was waiting on the porch. I got out of the truck and she wrapped me in a hug before I even made it to the steps. You okay? He asked into my hair. I will be, I said, and I meant it. We went inside. She'd made lasagna, my actual favorite, not the sad desk lunches I'd been calling meals for months. We sat at our dining room table. When was the last time we'd done that? And I told him everything, the voucher, the email, Richard chasing me through the parking lot. Sarah listened to all of it, occasionally shaking his head or squeezing my hand. When I finished, he was quiet for a minute. You know we'll be fine, right? He finally said. Financially, I mean. My salary covers the mortgage. We've got savings. You can take your time finding something better. I know, I said. I should have quit months ago. Probably, he agreed. But you're out now, that's what matters. We spent the evening doing absolutely nothing productive. Watched a movie, ate ice cream straight from the container, went to bed at a reasonable hour. I slept for 11 hours straight, and when I woke up Saturday morning, my phone had 47 notifications. Emails, texts, LinkedIn messages. Some from former colleagues offering support, some from recruiters who'd somehow already heard I was available. 3 from my team members, Kevin, Rachel, and Chloe, all saying some version of I put in my notice this morning, and one from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. Mr. Vance, this is Derek Hayes from Morrison & Associates Executive Search. I represent several companies who would be very interested in speaking with you about senior leadership positions. When you're ready, I'd love to discuss opportunities. Also, for what it's worth, that email was the most spectacular resignation I've seen in 20 years of recruiting. I showed the text to Zach. She grinned, told you you're going to be fine.